Hi, Miss McCarthy here, and welcome to my fifth lesson. Today's topic is the government of Athens. Here are some objectives that you will learn by the end of this lesson. Feel free to pause them and read over them. What I would also like you to do is be filling out your notes while you're following along. You should be able to complete your chart as well as the terms by the time you are done watching this presentation. In Athens, they use three different types of government. The first type they use is a monarchy. Athens was first ruled by a king until 750 BC. At this point, nobles, merchants, and manufacturers, so people of the more middle class, they decided that they wanted change, so they took over and they decided to set up an oligarchy. So an oligarchy is when there's a few people that have ruling power, very similar to Sparta. Typically, the people who are in power are those who have money or a lot of land. These people are also known as aristocrats. The third type of government that Athens uses is government by the people. Everyone has equal rights and is treated equally. If we remember, democracy is born in Athens, so we can credit Athens for this. But I want you to think to yourself, even though it says everyone has equal rights and is treated equally, do you really believe that? Which group of people in society might be left out? Possibly women and slaves, right? So not everyone is technically considered equal, and this might serve for problems later on. The road to democracy in Athens was not an easy straight path. Like I mentioned before, they started with a monarchy and then they moved to an oligarchy. They then develop the beginning of democracy. However, they go back to an oligarchy, and then they go back to democracy, and they really implement it in their society. The first ruler that we are going to talk about is Draco, and Draco comes to power in 621 BC. Before Draco comes to power, he is a nobleman, so he is on the top of the social classes. When he comes to power, he is most known for establishing written laws. Originally, the laws in Athens were told orally, so you might be breaking the law and not even know that you're breaking the law. So Draco writes his laws down, and he posts them throughout Athens, so there's not the excuse that I didn't know I was breaking the law, I don't know the laws. However, there's a problem with this. Draco, when he developed the laws, he made them very harsh. And typically the punishments that came to these laws led to death. So even for a very small petty crime like loitering, you could be sentenced to death. And because of this, his system of government fails. The people of Athens were not happy. They wanted something better. The next person that comes to power is Solon, and he comes to power in 594 BC. Solon is known for starting to bring democracy within Athens, and he creates the first constitution. And this constitution breaks the political power of the rich. When he comes to power, he has three types of solutions or reforms that he would like to bring to Athens. The first being economic. If we remember from class, in Athens as well as Greece, olives are very important. So Solon wanted Athenians to focus on producing and selling olive oil in order to increase their trade. The next type of reform was social. In Athens, there was a large population that was in debt, like many societies today. If you look at a lot of Americans were in debt in some way, shape, or form. So when Solon comes to power, he erases all the debt of all the people. Everyone starts off with a clean slate. He also removes the forced enslavement that was due to being in debt. For example, if I gave everyone in class $5, everyone would be in debt to me. And because of this, I might ask that you become my slave to work off your debt. Well, when Solon comes to power, he erases everyone's debt, so now people no longer have to be enslaved. And this is going to anger those who are rich and wealthy, because now they're not receiving their money back that those who are in debt owed to them, as well as they're missing out on labor. Solon also decides that he wants all men in Athens to teach their son a trade before they grow up. So by the time boys are 18, they should learn some type of skill that they can take with them into the world. The third set of reforms that Solon introduces is political. So in Athens, before Solon comes to power, landowners, people who own a substantial amount of land, might not have been able to vote. Solon now decides that if you own land, you are considered someone who's eligible to vote, and he's extending citizenship to these people. He also decides that if you have money within Athens, now you can also be a part of those who can rule. Originally in Athens, you had to be from noble lineage. You had to have someone in your family who came from the noble class or who have had experience in ruling in order for you to rule. However, he gets rid of this, and now you only need to be wealthy. He also is creating a new 400-member body, and we can relate to this as like the Supreme Court. So he's making this group of 400 people similar to the Supreme Court and like a justice system. So we can see there's some more democracy that he's starting to introduce into Athens. Under Solon's rule, the people were starting to take part in government. He was extending the citizenship to more people, therefore now they're able to partake in government. And trade was also increasing due to the olive oil sales. But there's a downside. The rich were not very happy. For example, one reason why they're not happy is because now those who owed them money no longer have to pay them back. As well as when he created the Constitution, he was breaking the political power of the rich, meaning that the people who are rich, who had more say in government, now do not have as much of a say. Also, the poor of Athens was not very happy with him either. They thought that he was not doing enough to help them. So Solon does all of these very nice things, but still the people are not happy. It's not enough. The next ruler to come to power is Pisistratus, and he rises to power in 546 BC. Originally, he is known as a tyrant, and when we think of the word tyrant, we think of negative words like mean, harsh, unbearable. But Pisistratus, on the other hand, he was actually someone that we can consider a good tyrant. He was supported by the lower class, so he was pretty popular. He decides that you no longer needed to own land to be a citizen. So Solon, the one before him, said that if you want to be a citizen, you have to own land. But Pisistratus decides, well, you do not have to own any more land. I'm going to get rid of that and make it more easier to become a citizen. He also takes all of the farming land of Athens and the surrounding areas, and he divides it up and disperses it to different families within Athens. So he's giving more people more of a chance to grow economically, and he is splitting the land for everyone to have more of an equal chance. Within Pisistratus' Athens, when he was ruling, he was encouraging art, he was creating temples and festivals for the people. And if we remember, when there's art, usually things are pretty good. However, the good times do not always last, and he later dies. In history, whenever there's someone who is in charge or in power, if they die, their eldest son tends to take over. And that's exactly what happens. So Hippias rises to power in 527 BC, and he is the son of Pisistratus. Originally, the Athenians thought that he was an okay guy because of his father and his father's legacy, and he was doing okay. But after Hippias' brother dies, he becomes very harsh and cruel and mean, and he changes. And the Athenians decide that he needs to leave and they need to replace him. because they are not happy with how things are going. So Hippias is now kicked out by another person who is going to try to make Athens better, and this person is Cleisthenes. Cleisthenes rises to power in 510 BC. He is known for creating the first constitution that was considered democratic. Solon does make the first constitution, but Cleisthenes is the one that's including more of the democracy elements and favoring the equality of all people. Due to all the reforms that Cleisthenes wants to make, he's angering the aristocrats. A man named Isagoras decides he's going to step in and he wants to get rid of Cleisthenes. He wants to rule instead. So 2 years after Cleisthenes rises to power in 508 BC, he kicks out Cleisthenes, but he does not do this alone. He needs the help of someone else. And that civilization that helps him is one that we've already studied. I'm sure you can take a guess. It is the Spartans. So Isagoras, he goes to the Spartans and asks for help with kicking out Cleisthenes, and the Spartans decide they're going to help him because they also do not want to have the spread of democracy. So the Spartans are winning because they don't have a chance of being influenced by the democracy of their people, and Isagoras can also now rule. But it doesn't last long. Isagoras is overthrown and Cleisthenes returns. So Isagoras' rule is it doesn't last very long. So Cleisthenes comes back and he is working more with the democracy elements. So he creates the first direct democracy, or common vote of the people. The people have a direct say in how government and the civilization will be ran. He also introduces ostracism, and this term means that when you are a civilization, you can vote each year who you want to ostracize or kick out of your civilization. Typically, this person is usually someone who is a threat to government, or maybe they're just a big pain. So in Athens, they introduce ostracism, and when you are ostracized, you must leave Athens for 1 full year. You cannot return or set foot in Athens. Sometimes this might even last for 10 years, depending on how big of a threat that person is. Cleisthenes also introduces freedom of speech. He opens the assembly to all men over 20 years old. He has some education reforms, some oaths for citizenship for young men, and he creates the Council of 500. And this council handles the daily business of Athens, and each year 500 random citizens are picked. So this creates a more fair opportunity for the people to be directly involved with government. The last person we're going to learn about is Pericles, and during his rule it is considered the Golden Age. And Pericles, his main goal was that he wanted to beautify Athens. So he wants to build all these beautiful temples and such. However, he does this with money from a place that he shouldn't have been taking the money from. So he's taking the money from the Military Defense League, and we're going to talk more about this when we talk about the Peloponnesian Wars. It's important to know that under Pericles, the Parthenon is built. And if we remember from class, the Parthenon is dedicated to Athena. Under Pericles' rule, Athens becomes the arts, educational, and cultural center of Greece. Quickly to wrap up, some quick questions that I want you to ponder. I want you to think about what ways is our government in the United States different than how it was in ancient Greece? How are we similar to the ancient Greeks with our democracy, and how are we different? Or is our version different? I want you to think about that. Feel free to do some extra research, but we're going to continue to talk about this in class. So feel free to go back and rewatch some of the sections about this. If you have any questions, just write them down and let me know. And remember to fill out your notes. I will see you in class. Thanks for watching.